This is the most requested video on my channel, and it is going to be the least popular video with a lot of real estate agents. One of the most stressful parts of selling your home is working with the wrong agent. An agent that's shady and looking to take advantage of you just to make a quick buck. An agent that's unprofessional or unskilled or just doesn't listen to what is really important to you. This is the single biggest issue in the real estate industry, and the reason why you might be struggling with the feeling that overall agents are untrustworthy. And the fact that those agents are out there drives me crazy. However, the good news is there are good agents. It's just a matter of knowing whether the agent you're interviewing is one of those agents. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the red flags you need to look out for and the questions you really need to be asking so that you don't get stuck with that shady, unscrupulous agent. Now, as you go through this process, I always recommend that you interview at least 2 to 3 agents. Now, I am a big believer of getting a referral as opposed to going into it blind and just going by an agent that sold you the house or an agent that sold properties in your neighborhood. But getting a referral doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good agent and it's the right agent for you. That referral from your friend who has a cousin who just got their real estate license and you really just want to help them out is not necessarily a good idea. So the process I'm going to outline for you, you want to go through with every single agent. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about are the red flags. The red flags that you're going to be looking out for during your entire interaction with that agent. And the first red flag is going to be lack of communication or delayed responses. Communication is one of the main complaints with real estate agents. From the very first meeting, how quickly did they answer the phone? Did they answer the phone at all? How quickly did they respond to the text? How quickly are they able to make an appointment to come meet with you? Not hearing from your agent for long periods of time when the house goes on the market is the #1 reason why sellers are stressed. All these little red flags that might be dropped during your communication have big implications during the entire process. Not responding to buyer questions on the property and then having those buyers become disinterested and move on to another property. I have absolutely been in situations when there's been lack of communication or a delayed response with a listing agent, and it is extremely difficult to keep that transaction on track and on time. Now, the next red flag, and this is a big one, pushy sales tactics or pressure to make quick decisions. Now, I have a lot of my viewers that reach out to me that ask me to connect them to a great agent. And part of the process of me finding them a great agent is asking them a bunch of questions. One of the top things that they say, if I ask them if they've had a bad experience with an agent, they say they were pressured by the agent, whether it be signing the listing contract or accepting an offer that they really didn't want to accept. They felt pressure. They felt like that agent just was a pushy salesman. The one thing that I want you to remember, you are the captain of the ship. Now, you're hiring a professional to give you professional advice and guidance, but ultimately, you're the one making the decision. Whether you're meeting that agent for the first time, or you're discussing what should or shouldn't be done to get the house ready for sale, or you're negotiating an offer, that agent's job is to provide you information and options. This is what your options are. Here's what can be done, and here is what the effect is going to be either on sale price or marketing or your time frame. If at any time that agent wants you to sign something you're not ready to sign or do something you're not ready to do, put the brakes on, communicate that to your agent, let them know I'm not ready. A good agent will say, okay, how can I help you? What is it that you're not certain about? What do we need to talk about? What do we need to strategize about? Not argumentative, try to talk you into it, try to be salesy, try to sell you on the idea why you need to do this. All of those things are huge red flags. Real estate agents do not need to be salesy. That's not something that you have to accept. And if you see that red flag, you need to show them the door. Now, the third red flag, and this one gets me super fired up, is when the agent has vague or inconsistent information. Now, it drives me crazy when I hear stories about agents that will visit your home. They'll spend 15, 20 minutes walking through the house with you. They'll go to the kitchen table, open up their fancy brochure, their fancy folder. Maybe they'll pull out a few comps of local area properties that have sold, and they'll look around the house and say, yeah, this will sell for $450,000. What? You're just pulling that out of the top of your head. You have done zero research. You've gone to the house. You've never seen the inside of this house before, ever. They have no idea how many updates you've done or you haven't done, and they've done absolutely zero research, and magically, they just know what that number is. No. Red flag all day long. I personally am a big fan of the two-part visit. What that means is that I will visit your home and do a walkthrough inspection. And to be honest, it's probably about an hour and a half, because it's all about collecting data, collecting information. I want to know everything I can about your situation, your house, what you've done for updates, what you haven't done for updates, what you plan to do between now and the time you're putting the house on the market. I want to get all of that information. I want to see it for myself. And then I take myself out of the situation. I go back to my office, I do my homework, and I do my research. And part of that research is now taking those properties and comparing and putting some thought into it, looking at those comps a little differently, in that sometimes face value, I will take an MLS printout and the information is not accurate on the MLS printout. And I have to go to town records and I have to verify the information that actually is on that paperwork. But then taking it a step further and saying apples to apples, this house has a garage, this one does not, this house has an updated kitchen, this one does not, and actually putting value to that so that I can explain to the homeowner exactly why I think the house is worth $450,000. Because having that number off the top of their head without doing the research, without having that data to back it up, it makes it harder to stand next to an appraiser who says that house is not worth $425,000, and then I can say I have data to show that it is worth $450,000, or go to bat for you when you're in the middle of an offer negotiation. All of these things matter. So if you have an agent that magically knows all the numbers and doesn't have the data to prove it, doesn't have the information to back up what they're saying the market is slow. Show me on paper, show me the MLS information for that neighborhood, for that town that backs up what you're saying. That's what you need to look out for. And I see it day in and day out. It is a huge red flag. Homeowners don't know that that's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm telling you this because I want you to know that if your agent is doing that, you need to either find another agent or have a long conversation with that agent and tell them, I want you to do better. Okay, I got that out of my system. Now on to the next red flag, which is unusually low commission fees. Now you might be thinking like, isn't that a good thing? I save myself money if the agent's willing to do it for less. I'm just cautioning you that it might be a red flag. If an agent lacks skill, if they lack professionalism, they might buy the listing by offering you a lower commission. In other words, the goal is to have you overlook all those other red flags because he's going to do it for less money. He might be less skilled. He might stink at communication, but you'll save yourself some money by having the lower commission. You just want to be careful. There are also discount brokerages, and discount brokerages are for some people, and it just means that the agent will do less for less money. And that model works for some people. But if your expectation is to have a full service real estate agent and they come in and they offer less with the anticipation of giving you less, that's a red flag. That's going to be something that's going to cause some serious friction between you and the listing agent. All right, I've given you all the red flags. Now we're going to get into what are the actual questions that you need to ask when you are interviewing a real estate agent. The first question that you need to ask is, how long have you been working in real estate, and particularly in this area? So having an agent that's been in the business a long time doesn't automatically mean that they're a great agent. However, having years logged in the real estate business and having transactions logged does give them experiential knowledge. Having an agent that's only been in the business 2 or 3 years and has maybe only sold 10 homes does not give you a great deal of confidence in terms of them being able to anticipate issues and giving you guidance. Now, if that agent is on a team and is under advisement of more skilled agents, that might be a little bit different story. But you really want a seasoned agent, an agent that has that experiential knowledge of being able to anticipate issues before they happen. And then on top of that, you want an agent that has done business in your particular area. Nowadays, teams have become very popular. Real estate agents form teams. We have a team leader, and then you have agents on that team that can cover a pretty wide area. You want to make sure that the agent that you are working with on that team has history, so they know how to properly price it. They know how to properly market it. That agent is going to know the local hotspots, the amenities, the schools. They'll be able to tell prospective buyers all the great things that are about living in that area, know what the challenges are for living in your particular neighborhood. Those agents will be able to price it properly, represent it properly, so that they can establish the right list price and marketing plan. Now, the second question that you want to ask is how many home sellers versus how many home buyers they've represented. If you have an agent that predominantly represents home buyers, it might not be the right agent. And I've mentioned this in previous videos that oftentimes home sellers go to the agent that sold them the house. And sometimes that's okay. I represent both buyers and sellers all the time. I will help a client buy a home, and then 5-10 years later, they'll reach out to me and I'll help them sell that home. I represent both parties, and I've done that for 28 years. However, if you have an agent that has only been in the business 4, 5, 6 years, and 70% of their business is home buyers, they may not have the experience necessary to properly represent you as a home seller. Now, the third question, which is a question that you absolutely need to ask your agent every single time, is can you provide references? Not only homes that they've sold, but names and telephone numbers of those clients so you can call them and ask them how their experience was. Now, a lot of agents will give you printouts and they'll say, I sold this house and this house and this house and these people were happy. Great. I want to talk to them. And yes, it's going to be a chore, but it is probably going to be the single best thing you do when you're interviewing your agent. If you were hiring a contractor to build you a house, you would want to talk to other homeowners. If you were hiring that contractor to build an addition, you would want to talk to other homeowners. How was the process working with the contractor? Did they show up on time? Did they stick to the schedule? Did they charge you more money? Did you have any issues with them? Those are the questions that you want to ask that reference. Now, obviously, they're not going to give you names and numbers of unhappy clients. However, if you get on the phone with them and you're having a candid conversation, you can get a sense of what the experience was working with that agent. If they say, yeah, they got the job done, but, and then ask them the same questions that we were just talking about. Did they communicate properly? Did you feel well informed? Did they live up to all the promises that they made? Ask them all the questions that you would ask during the interview and see what they say. The one thing that I have run across is that the expectation of the real estate agent is a lot lower than it should be. A home seller will say the experience was great. And I'll say, well, did they do this? No. Well, did they do this? No. Well, they must have done this. Well, no. They didn't even know what they didn't know. They didn't know that they were entitled to certain services. They didn't know that the agent should go through the data and explain why the price is the price. They didn't know that the agent should follow up in a timely fashion, get back to them, and keep them informed when there's long periods of time when there's no activity on the house. They accepted it as normal when they shouldn't have. And that type of service is what I want you to avoid. I want you to advocate for yourself so you don't have to go through that subpar service. Now, as you're going through these questions, you might be striking out and you're saying, oh my gosh, none of the agents that I'm talking to are of any kind of caliber that I want to hire at this point, and I don't know what to do. Well, one of the services that I provide, because I feel passionate about helping people, and I have come across great agents. Over the years, I have come across probably about 75% of the agents that I come across are not worth doing business with. Unfortunately, yes, they might be shady, but a lot of them are unskilled or unprofessional, or they're just not delivering the service that I would expect from an agent. However, there are great agents out there. 20 to 25% of the agents that are forgotten about, unfortunately, are the agents that do care and they go the extra mile and they really focus on the needs of the client first, not the buck that they're going to make at the end of the transaction. I am happy to connect you with one of those clients. Yes, I get a referral fee. That's how I fund this channel. I'm able to monetarily afford to spend the time researching this content for you. However, I want to be able to vet those agents out for you. So in the description down below, there's going to be a link. There'll be a short, quick form. Fill out that information. I'll respond to you within 24 hours. We're going to get the process going. I'll ask you a bunch of questions on what is important to you, what concerns you have, what are the things that really separate each agent from the other to match you with the absolute right agent. And then I will connect you with that agent in your local area. So click the link down below and I will take care of that for you. There's no cost to you. This is no service fee to you. I want to do this for you because I'm so passionate about really highlighting the good agents above and beyond all the other agents that you really need to stay away from. All right, on to the next question. The next question that you want to ask your agent is, what is the success rate with the listings that you've sold? You want to know how many homes they've listed over the last 12 months, 24 months, how long those properties were on the market for between the list date, the offer date, and then ultimately the sale date, and then what the ultimate sale price was compared to the initial list price. The reason why is because that's going to give you an indication on how accurate they are in their valuations. Now, the market does shift. We don't have any control over that. And some sellers are a stick in the mud, and you try to tell them, this is where I think you should be. They're the captain of the ship. They want to start a little higher. We advise them, I really don't think that's a good idea, but we have to respect their wishes, and that's what happens. But if that happens consistently, and they have many listings that have multiple price changes, that could be a red flag that they just are not effective in proper valuation up front. It also might mean that they're buying the listing. And what I mean by that is that agents that are starved for business, and right now with inventory so low, agents are looking for listings. They'll do what they have to do to get a listing. An unscrupulous, shady agent will do what they have to do to get a listing, which means they'll take it even if it's overpriced. They'll take it if it's drastically overpriced because they know it's never going to sell at that price, but eventually the seller will reduce. Eventually they'll get an offer and they'll negotiate it down to where it should be. And they don't care how long it takes. They're not looking out for your best interest. They just want the buck. And the buck is in the listing contract. You don't want that. You don't want that. You want an agent that's going to get you a good valuation, get you the right valuation up front, so that ultimately the house sells in a very short, reasonable amount of time. If it's properly priced, it doesn't matter if it needs work. It doesn't matter if it's turnkey. A well-priced, properly priced home, not giving it away, but a properly priced home will sell in a reasonable amount of time. So knowing exactly what that agent has done is critical. Now, the next question you're going to ask is, what is your marketing strategy? Now, if you're interviewing your agent, you're standing in the living room and the agent gives a standard response, oh, we're going to do photography and it's going to go in MLS and it's going to go in Zillow and we're going to do open houses and that's it. Yeah, that's not good enough. You want to know more than that. What you want to know is you want to know what are they going to do for your particular property, and you want to see it in writing. You want to know exactly how are they going to get buyers in the door for your particular house. Open houses are not the answer for every single property. How exactly are they going to do photographs? I can't believe that agents are still taking pictures on their cell phones vertically, and they're terrible with stuff on the countertops and toilet seats up and stuff in the yard and all the things. Like, in this day and age, professional grade photography is a standard and should be expected and paid by the agent, 100%. Things like virtual tours, 360 tours, 100%. There's no reason why an agent can't do a 360 tour on every property. It's something that you should expect. But more importantly, you want to know in writing, what is that agent going to do for you? What type of connections do they have to the local community? You might be in a neighborhood where it's a close neighborhood, and that having network connections to get to the buyers is the best way to bring people into the front door. Those are the questions that you want to ask, and you want to make sure that they give you detailed, not just canned information. Now, the next question that you want to ask, and this might seem like a minor question, but you got to ask the question, how are you going to communicate with me throughout the process? Now, the agent should respond with, how would you like me to communicate with you? If you want text messages and emails, then that's what they should do. If you prefer phone calls, you should not have to bend to the agent who just sends you text messages all day when you really want a phone call, but that's just how they work. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. That agent needs to cater to what your style of communication is. And if they are not willing to do that, show them a front door. Done. And then the other piece is, how often am I going to hear from you? You want to know that you're going to hear from that agent during the times when there's nothing to communicate to. And that's probably the biggest issue in this industry, is that the agent has nothing to report, so they don't call the client. And then you're sitting there wondering, like, what's the agent doing for me? Are they like out just having cocktails all day and I'm paying them all this money? That's what everybody thinks. In reality, they're probably working, but you don't hear from them, so you have no idea. You need to hear from them at least on a weekly basis, and it should be systematized. That's the other thing too, is you want to make sure that it's a systemized approach. It's not I'll call you when I'm going through the drive-through at the coffee place, or I'm going to call you from the grocery store. No. This is a professional business. Again, the standard needs to be set higher. I have never talked to anybody while I'm walking through Walmart, by the way. I can't even imagine. That's not something you need to settle for, ever. Now, the last question is going to be, what is your availability? If the agent you're interviewing is working part-time, I do not recommend hiring part-time agents. This is a full-time business. And yes, certain parts of the country, it is harder, much, much harder to make a living as a real estate agent, just because of the nature of the sale price and the amount of inventory, the amount of average transactions. It is really hard in certain parts to be a full-time agent. However, it is a business where you need to be available. Buyers are going to be available at different times of the day. Buyers need to see homes at different times of the day. Your schedule may not be the same as their schedule. And it's not that they need to be at beck and call. I am not available after dinner and on Sundays. And I have been that way for over 15 years. My clients know that. If they're going to call me on a Saturday night, I'm going to call them back on Monday morning. We establish that up front. They don't guess, why doesn't Jen call me back? I establish that up front. This is what my availability. Now, if we're negotiating an offer, it's a different story. But you need to know, what is your availability? Because if their availability in their mind is that they're not going to be available on Saturdays and Sundays or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then they don't return your call on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that is not going to jive, and you're going to be super frustrated. You need to know up front, what is their availability. Okay, you've gone through the interview, you've asked your questions, you have all that information, they've left the building. Now it's time to research. Now this part, I'm going to get some kickback from agents on, and honestly, I don't care. Because you as the home seller deserve to know this information. And what I want you to do is I want you to check social media. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if that agent is not representing themselves in a professional manner, okay, in an acceptable manner on social media, how are they going to show up to their job? Now, we all are entitled to our personal lives. We're all entitled to do things on our own time. But I do think that when you're in a business such as this, what you put on social media matters. It is the reason why in certain jobs, people will not get hired based on their social media account. I think real estate is the same way. We are in a public service business. And in my opinion, your social media account should not reflect inappropriate content, period. And they may show up professional, but then you see them falling over drunk on their social media. Is that somebody that you want to hire? Maybe you don't care. Maybe you do. There's a reason why a lot of employers look at social media during the interview process these days. Not just real estate. You can learn a lot from an agent's social media. And I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you do that. And then the last thing you want to do is Google them. Check the Google reviews. Check the Zillow reviews. See what people are writing about this agent. And then if you don't find anything online, that could be a red flag too, because that means they don't have a presence online. And then the last tip that I'll give you is get everything in writing. Now, I have mentioned this in other videos, and it is so crucial because talk is cheap. You want to make sure that everything that comes out of that agent's mouth is also on a piece of paper. If they promise you certain items that they're going to do during the listing period, make sure that's on the listing contract. If they say you can back out at any time, make sure that's on the listing contract. If they say the house can be listed at this date and it's not going to go on the market till that date, it's got to be on the listing contract. Make sure that it's backed up. It's just a good way to protect yourself. It's not because you don't necessarily trust the agent. It's just a good business practice because it is a business relationship that you're getting into with this agent. Now, I know this is a lot of information, and if you have sold a house before, you may not have done some of these things, and that's okay. Now you know. Now you know how to look for a good agent, a great agent that is going to team up with you. That's going to be a good match. Now, when you're going through this interview process, you're going to be asking a lot of questions, and there are some key things that you don't want to tell your real estate agent right away. Now, I did a video on this. You can check it out here. Highly recommend that you watch the video about all the things that you never, ever want to tell your real estate agent. I'm Sylvester, and I'm here to help you be a savvy home seller.